So where did you actually come from in the first place?
I'm from Albany in Western Australia.
Okay.
So
that's a nice part of the world.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Cold.
Yep.
So cold.
Right.
Like you'd play soccer down there on a Friday night at 9 p.m. and you would get covered in hail and your bones would ache, and then you have a shower and it would hurt to be in the shower, like that kind of the cold that you feel inside of you.
Right.
So I don't miss that part of it. I do miss the beaches and people that know how to use roundabouts, because like Darwin has a lot of enthusiasm for roundabouts but no skill.
Well, my partner is from a similar sort of area to you down WA way. Like she's from a farming area, down Darwin, near Cervantes, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
She gives us stick for our driving as well. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm prepared to cop that.
I think you have to.
Really?
Like, honestly.
A territory driver's that bad?
Territory drivers just don't know how to use roundabouts because you use indicators like practical jokes.
Yeah, it's an indicator for a reason, right?
It's like people put the indicator on and then as they're about to get off, they go, "Meh," and change their mind.
It was a suggestion, not an indication. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, okay, so the weather as well. Like, how did you cope with the territory weather coming from somewhere so cold?
Yeah, I don't mind sweating.
Okay.
Like, I actually don't mind the heat.
Yeah.
Like we've literally this story journey is going in all sorts of different directions, which is kind of how my brain works. But literally, like the past 3 months, we've been overseas, husband, daughter, and I, and been in cold places all over. And people have been like, "Oh, Darwin's so hot. How do you handle it? Darwin's so hot." And as soon as we got off that plane and got hit by the humidity, arriving home in October, I felt so comfortable.
Like a warm blanket.
Like just like a warm blanket is a weird way to describe it. I've always thought of it more as like a wet blanket, or like going like when you walk into monsoons on ladies' night and it's just full of men. Like that's what the humidity feels.
It's raining men.
It is literally raining men.
Yep.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
It is raining men. But yeah, I like the heat. I like the sweatingness. I like how it brings out a certain type of person as well. Like, I don't think the territory's for everyone. I think that's a branding mistake. I think it's for a certain type of human. And part of that is being able to be uncomfortable in heat. I think
I think that's a good take on it.
Yeah, I don't think it's one of those ones where it's like, oh, you got to be tough and masculine and don't be soft. I don't think that is helpful.
Yep.
But I do think that you've got to be okay with a bit of discomfort.
Like resilient, maybe.
Resilient's probably the right word. I think that's probably it. Yeah.
And how do you sort of throw mango madness into the mix there? Like,
it's fun. Like it's as a comedian.
Yep.
It's so fun for content.
Right.
Like I can open up the NT News and find a story. It's great. People say things, do things. I think people exist with another level of authenticity here than anywhere else in Australia.
Right.
People aren't scared to just be themselves and say things or do things that are a little bit sillier. And I think that's one of the things I love about it.
Yep.
I feel like I can be sillier and more authentic here than elsewhere. Like if I was a comedian or an MC, because like I host galas and things like that in Darwin, which are quite fancy events.
Yep.
But if I was doing that down south, I'd be a completely different energy of human.
Right.
Like there's a constriction in being somewhere that's a big city that we don't experience here.
Like a higher degree of formality,
yeah,
maybe?
And a fear of making mistakes. While I don't necessarily have that fear as much in Darwin now that I've been here for so long and that I am a part of it. Like I don't fear mistake making as much.
So like if you make a mistake down south, it could cost you your career.
Yeah, because there's so many other people fighting for it.
Yes.
And there's so many other people that have this expectation of perfection. It's same as like networking. Like you network in the Northern Territory and people just want to have a yarn and be human. But that doesn't necessarily translate as well elsewhere because there's this sales energy. But yeah, that fear of making mistakes I think is one of the best things about the Territory is that you can make a mistake here and it's not the end of the world. There's a forgiveness. There's also a space to be creative and a bit silly. Like I was hosting the Brolga Awards, which is like that's a big one.
That was only recently?
No, ages. This is years ago.
Okay, sure.
No, I'm not going to like pretend as if I've done it recently. There's a reason they haven't booked me again. No, I said the word tourism so many times when I was hosting that at some point during the night I thanked everybody for their work in terrorism.
Right.
Like that's a mistake.
Yeah.
But
a little bit of a faux pas.
So funny.
Yeah.
Everyone laughed and I still get booked to do gigs. Like I think making a mistake like that down south, people are
death knell, yeah.
Well, I think they're just not open to humanness as much, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, they're a bit more wooden.
Yeah.
Maybe there's
not to say that everyone is.
No, of course not.
As a collective unit, I feel like Territorians are a little bit more
forgiving.
Yeah, authentic.
And just, she'll be right, mate, sort of thing.
You can't not be authentic here because you sweat your makeup off.
Yeah.
Like you've got to be yourself.
The real you will be uncovered at some point.
It will be uncovered despite how much makeup you have put on, how much of a mask you're wearing. You will sweat it off and become yourself here.
Yeah.